to our Power Platform series. Again, joining with me today is Rich Weck from our Power Platform and CE practice. And I'm excited today to dig into how we can use Power Automate in our daily lives today to automate and make our lives better, right? So, when we talk to manufacturers, when we talk to supply chain companies, we hear that automation and becoming more efficient is key to their success from a standpoint of growth. Given that there are some staffing challenges that we're encountering today. And as we continue to talk to people, we just find that they're having, just the typical problems, right? Of the fact that there's a lot of manual processes, or it requires more labor than they really would expect something would take. And so today we want to cover how can we reduce data entry? How can we automate repetitive tasks and maybe even find some better synergies around workflow and unlock your labor force with better productivity? Rich, if you don't mind, without investing a lot of time and resources, what can manufacturers do to overcome some of these common challenges associated with inefficient processes?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Dag. Power Automate is another one of the pillars of Microsoft's Power Platform solution that is kind of the glue of the entire Power Platform per se. It is a giant, for the lack of a better term, workflow engine developed by Microsoft, allowing businesses such as manufacturers to automate processes and automate actions within the various software solutions that they may have. Historically, software solutions had kind of their own built-in workflow, but it was very limited to just that particular solution. It only interacted with, something going on in that particular software solution. The beauty of Power Automate is it's independent of a software solution, and using all the connectors that are part of the Power Automate solution, we can automate processes in multiple solutions simultaneously, giving them the ability to interact with each other in a very low-code, no-code type of format. So it's a very powerful solution by Microsoft.
And just to clarify, can I use Power Automate with non-Microsoft products, or do I need to be running all Microsoft products?
Obviously, the integration of Microsoft Stack is very, very strong, but through the use of the 500 plus connectors that exist today for the platform, you can connect to just about any system that an organization has. And then, if a connector doesn't exist, you can use a developer to create a connection to that system, allowing your team to automatically or build automations to your legacy systems.
Awesome. So I feel like Power Automate really fits the bill from a standpoint of business rules and workflow and automation. But, from a book standpoint, that sounds great on paper, but tell me a little bit more about how does this look like? What does it look like in real life? Maybe, take us through one real life example of what that looks like.
Sure. So one of our clients, South Jersey Industries, came to us with a problem that they had where their customer service department would receive thousands of emails at a time, a week or so. And each of those emails was titled something different. And they really struggled as an organization, a customer service organization, to respond to those emails effectively and in a quick amount of time. So their customer service satisfaction level was not as high as they would have liked. They came to us, asked if there was a way that we could automate this process for them. And so using Power Automate, we created some automations where Power Automate would monitor an email box where all these customer service requests came in. And based on keywords that were in the body of the email as well as the subject of the email, we were able to route the specific customer service requests to various queues that they defined. And as a result of that, they had a 22.5% increase in the number of emails that were answered within 24 hours after we implemented this solution for them. They actually had an 11.5% increase in the number of emails that were answered within 48 hours. So They really did improve the level of satisfaction for their clients by speeding the process up to reach their customers.
That's amazing. I mean, that's an awesome story, and I can't imagine that there aren't other customer service organizations out there relying on email to do the majority of their order entry and communication with their customers. So I could see that as being a good place to start when you think of how can I leverage this technology in a way that will further my organization and make us more efficient. Are there other areas, off the top of your head, maybe, are there other areas that might be ripe for applying Power Automate?
Yeah, there's lots of places we can apply Power Automate and to automate processes. So that was, because South Jersey Industries was just one example. We have another customer that came to us where their distributors who were selling the machines that they sold would come to them requesting a data sheet about a particular machine. And that distributor would contact the organization. The sales rep would take the information, generate the data sheet, it's typically 25 to 30 pages in a PDF format, and then send it back to the distributor so that they could go visit with their prospect. And that was a pretty laborious process for the distributors and for the client. Quite often it took a lot of time. There was a lack of follow-up because once the sales rep sent the distributor the document, quite often they would not follow up, with what went on with that prospect. So the client came to us and said, "Hey, can we automate this process in some possible way?" And so we built a solution for them where it did involve a portal for their distributors. The distributor could log into the portal, submit a request for a specific data sheet on a machine, and then using Power Automate, we took that request and we built the data sheet, that 25 to 30 page data sheet, automatically for the rep. We combined all the prospect information that was required, and then we immediately sent it over to the distributor. So it was a really quick process. And then the next step that we did, so the distributor was happy in that case because they got that document right away. But then the business was also very happy because we created an opportunity in their CRM system for them with the appropriate sales rep tied to it, so that they could actually go back and follow up on that at a later date. So using Power Automate to automate this process, we create a real closed loop solution for them that not only benefited the distributor through the automation, it also benefited the client because we created the closed loop solution and they were able to follow up on sales much faster than they ever were able to before.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have considered a PDF being something that could be generated out of Power Automate. So that shows some power there. What about, as we covered Power Apps last time, are there synergies if you use Power Apps with Power Automate? And how do those two work together?
Yes, so Power Apps and Power Automate definitely work together. While they're unique and powerful solutions just by themselves, the two of those solutions, both Power Apps and Power Automate, become much more powerful when you combine the two of them together. So quite often in an application that you might be building in Power Apps, you need some sort of automation. When some condition occurs, trigger off an approval, or when a condition occurs in your system, send an update to Teams notifying a large group of folks that something happened. So yes, again, by themselves, very powerful, but when you use them together, even more powerful than before.
Yeah, I love that idea of enabling additional communication via Teams, because a lot of us are already in there on our day-to-day, hour by hour, minute by minute lives. So tell me a little bit about, can Power Automate really, you mentioned it can work for non-Microsoft products. Can it also work with a product I have running, in my data center on-prem that's not online? How does that work?
Yes, so we can use Power Automate desktop flows to actually mimic the actions of a real human. So we could train a bot, a Power Automate bot, right, to log into that application and actually click on, where it needs to click, maybe do some searches in that application, get data out of that application, and then once it retrieves that information, just like a human would, it could technically log into another application and write that information all behind the scenes. So we can use Power Automate desktop flows to create or handle repetitive, mundane tasks that a human normally would do, and do that 24/7, 365 in a completely unattended mode without the need for a real human.
Another term I've heard recently is RPA, and my understanding of that is that it is robotic process automation. And Rich, I'm looking for you to kind of decode that for me. What does Power Automate do in that space?
So RPA, or robotic process automation, is the area of Power Automate where we train a digital worker to utilize the applications on a computer as if a human would be doing those steps. So quite often organizations have applications that are very old that may not have a modern programming interface, but yet we still need to interact with those applications. And so when you train a robotic process automation worker or a digital bot, whatever you'd like to title it, you can train that bot to do the steps just as if it were a human opening up the program, clicking around, interacting with that application just like a human would be doing, but it can be completely unattended. And so that bot will log in, do what it needs to do, retrieve information, maybe write information back to that application. And then if you needed to integrate with other solutions in the organizations through the rest of the Power Automate suite, we can connect to and update and retrieve and write data back and forth. So it's robotic process automation in a nutshell is basically a, for lack of a better term, a digital human doing steps that a human normally would do on a computer.
I guess as a manufacturer, I likely am going into suppliers' websites, checking out their prices potentially, maybe even, looking for what is the status of my purchase order. Is that also a way that I can use Power Automate to automate that manual process?
Yes, that's absolutely a way to do that. We've also, here at MCA, we've actually used the Power Automate with robotic process automation to find out the status of a customer's containers that are on a ship, at any given time. So they want to know, where are my containers, because those containers contain parts that they need for the manufacturing processes that they own. And so, normally on a daily basis, multiple times a day, they would need to log into multiple freight forwarding websites to see the status of the various containers that they're expecting to arrive. And using Power Automate, we were able to open up those websites, do the queries, retrieve the information about the status of those containers, and then subsequently write it back to the ERP system that they were using so that their users knew on a very frequent basis where those containers were, and the manufacturing floor had an idea of when they'd be able to continue on with the manufacturing process.
That's amazing. So it sounds like Power Automate can fit that gap that I see between, trying to do EDI or APIs in this like very IT heavy area versus, just throwing a body at something and just getting the data manually. But Power Automate seems to be sort of the middle ground where I can use someone in my team to actually, train the bot, so to speak, to go do that process for me. Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
Okay. Awesome. Is Power Automate, how does that work as far as like me being an Office user in Teams? Is Power Automate part of what I get along with that, or how can I take advantage of that?
Most Microsoft 365 subscriptions include some level of Power Apps and Power Automate for all business users to utilize. So yes, talk with your administrator, and chances are you probably already have Power Automate available for you to start working with in your organization. It's just a matter of trying it out, a couple point and click, and you're off and running. So come up with an idea or use case of what you'd like to automate, and go at it.
Awesome. So, as a manufacturer, I have probably a limited IT organization, and I'm thinking through here, like, let's say I do have a customer service process that might need some automation, but I don't have anyone on my team who knows Power Automate. So, how do I either get up to speed, or where do I start to really understand and unlock this new tool that sounds very, very beneficial to my organization?
So you can contact an organization like ours, and MCA Connect. We're happy to help train people on how to use the tool set, and you can go from there. Or there are many articles and YouTube videos on how to do simple things in Power Automate and Power Apps for that matter. So there's a lot of documentation to make it really easy to learn this tool set.
From an IT standpoint, I think of learning a programming language and how it takes years to master. How would you relate Power Automate to that? Is it somewhat easy to pick up?
It's extremely easy to pick up. It's just part of Microsoft's low code, no code platform. And so, if you're used to dragging and dropping items into a PowerPoint deck, it's more or less doing the same thing. You're dragging your connector or your step onto the canvas, and plugging in a couple of properties, and you're off and running. So it's very easy to connect, say, your email system to Teams, for if you wanted to do that, and alert in Teams, or update Teams based on some condition in Dynamics. Very easy to do very quickly with just a few clicks of the mouse.
So as far as, like, you had mentioned there's 400 or 500 connectors, and you've highlighted that Power Automate can touch Teams and it can touch Dynamics and certainly Power Apps. Are there other connectors that are very commonly used, and what could you highlight for us?
Oh gosh, there's a bunch of connectors. I mean, off the top of my head, there are connectors to SAP, to ServiceNow, to Adobe, to various email marketing systems and solutions. A large number that are out there. I mentioned there's about 500 plus today. That number is growing more and more every single day. And those are the ones that are provided, through Microsoft. There are also third-party vendors that, build their own connectors as well, and can sell them for a fee, that do very specific things as well.
Okay, interesting. And so we talked about how Power Automate can help with workflow, help with processes, help enhance a Power App. Are there ways to use Power Automate from a standpoint of just grabbing and consolidating data, or maybe like what we would traditionally call an interface?
Yes, we quite often use Power Automate to build interfaces or integrations, right, between two different systems, or three or four different systems. So Power Automate makes that very easy to do, because you're using the connectors to connect to those systems. You're querying those systems with ease, and then you can consolidate the data that you retrieve out of those systems into whatever software application that you want to interact with.
So, Rich, I've heard that Power Automate, it just feels instantaneous, and I don't think we really dived into this yet, the idea of triggers and actions. And so can you describe for me what those are, and what's a trigger? How does that enable these automations to occur at the time of an event, as opposed to, like, let's say, every night?
With Power Automate, you have a variety of execution mechanisms. One of them can be monitoring for a certain condition to occur in your database or your software system. So using Dynamics as an example, we might create a trigger that when an opportunity reaches a certain percentage threshold, notify, certain individuals about that particular opportunity. Maybe they need to be preparing for the opportunity closing, and there's a bunch of post-close steps that need to occur. So as users are working with the Dynamics 365 system and that opportunity reaches that condition, Power Automate is just kind of waiting behind the scenes for that condition to occur. When it does happen, it goes through all the automations that you've defined and does whatever you told it to do. So that's kind of an automated version of that. But you could also build an automation in Power Automate that is executed when you want it to. So maybe there's a series of steps that you do in your job every single day that is very manual, very labor intensive. You can use Power Automate to automate those steps. And so if you have to do that 2 or 3 times a day, you just open up Power Automate after it's built, click a button, and it just does all the heavy lifting for you.
It's very interesting. Is Power Automate also useful just at an individual level? Like in my day-to-day life, it sounds like there's a good case for me to just try it out personally.
Oh, yes. Using that last description, that yes, you absolutely can use it just on a personal level to do the things that, to solve problems. God, what am I trying to say? You can use Power Automate on a personal level to, create those automations for yourself that saves you time on things that you would do on a day-to-day basis. So if you need to go retrieve information from a website 5 times a day, we can absolutely use Power Automate to go do that either on a scheduled basis or just when you choose to execute that automation, and it can go retrieve the data, write it wherever you like, and you yourself can use that automation over at any time that you like.
Awesome. So Rich, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for shedding light on really what Power Automate is and the ways that we can use it, whether it's workflow, whether it's automation, whether it's integrating and collecting data, or helping us in our personal lives. I think those are all really exciting and inspirational type of just examples that we should kind of take some time to understand better. One thing before we leave, what are some ways that we could get started today? I'm not sure that we covered that. Like, what are some concrete steps I could take?
So you can start building out your Power Automate flows today by going to make.powerapps.com and logging into your company's maker portal, and you can start building your Power Automate flows as well as your Power Apps today. You can visit the websites and YouTube videos and such like that, or you can contact us and we can do a Power App in a Day event where one of the modules that we go through in that whole event is learning Power Automate. You should be able to get up and running in a very short order. Your first automation shouldn't take more than just a few minutes.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us for this installment of the Power Platform series. I do want to encourage you to attend the next one about Power BI. And really, these Power Apps and this Power Automate, those systems are going to be generating data. Certainly, you've got a lot of data around your organization, and we want to help you unlock that and give you, again, some ideas about where does Power BI fit, how can I get access to the data, how can I ingest the data, and better utilize that product. Even if you use it today, it's going to be a good one for you. Looking forward to the next time.